Do you think that marijuana should be legalized?
I wouldn't go that far, but what I think is that at this point, Washington and Colorado, you've seen the voters speak.
Now, retail pot stores opened their doors on New Year's Day in Colorado. Demand has been high, to say the least.
Another American city on the verge of decriminalizing marijuana. And guess what? This time right here in the nation's capital.
The over-criminalization of African-American youth is so much due to criminalizing marijuana. To what end? It means that you're less likely to be able to get a job, go to school, get housing, and that just does not make sense.
I went to court here in New York City where they announced this, and I asked, what's the dumbest drug case you had today? And they told me about a guy who got 47 days in Rikers just for having a joint in his pocket.
Marijuana prohibition has been one of the most devastating consequences of the war on drugs. Marijuana prohibition is a great cause of incarceration. You know, in the United States, 2.3 million people are incarcerated in prison, and 1.6 of them are in there for nonviolent offenses. And of that 1.6, nearly 800,000 of them are in there for marijuana.
It's a real critical time, you know, right now, especially if we're looking at, you know, the style of policing that the current commissioner, Bill Bratton, has employed, you know, where young folks are being targeted for low-level offenses as a way to, you know, curtail, you know, more serious crimes. If you're looking at the connections between stop and frisk and marijuana arrest, I mean, it's a very close correlation. So the fact that one is going up at an alarming rate and the other one is supposedly going down, you know, that's creating, I guess, a lot of skepticism, you know, and distrust for the current police commissioner, definitely, but also for Mayor de Blasio. A lot of how the media has talked about it as the stop and frisk movement is being ended, but it's almost like the marijuana arrest movement is going strong.
In New York, we were part of the first batch of states in the country that recognized that the harms associated with marijuana do not compare to the harms associated with arresting people for marijuana. Yet, we're in a position where we're the marijuana arrest capital of the world.
Young people are being trapped, right? And the fact that the officers can't technically arrest you unless they see it visible, right? But if we look at the culture of stop and frisk, a lot of times what happens is, again, either through illegal searches, you know, saying they'll find it, pull it out, and then when they fill out the form, they say that they saw it visible, even though it really wasn't. Or what happens is, again, they may approach you, you know, saying because they're looking for guns or they're looking for other types of weapons, they may just approach you and say, hey, listen, we're not looking for any drugs. You know, saying if you have them, take it out. You do yourself a favor trying to play it like the nice cop way. You know, saying young people who may not know their rights or, to be honest about it, are just trying to get out of the situation because they don't want to be dealing with a cop in their face. They may take it out and then it makes it susceptible, right? So I think it's great, you know, saying that we have a situation where the marijuana is decriminalized, but unfortunately, again, under the current climate of policing, it creates an opportunity to where people are being tricked into incriminating themselves.
This is a war overwhelmingly on poor people, and it's a war overwhelmingly on people of color. And I am confident in saying that because government data shows us that marijuana usage is equal amongst all races and classes, and in some instances even higher among young white males. However, you know, most of the arrests are young Black and Latino men, and the consequences exacerbate an already economically depressed community.
My name is Anthony Keller. I'm 20 years old, and I go to the College of Staten Island. So a year ago, I was walking behind the Amsterdam Projects. I got stopped by a paddy wagon of about 3 officers. They essentially stopped and frisked me. They didn't find anything, but they put me in a paddy wagon for about 20 minutes of a drive around until they stopped somebody else who had 2 bags on them. And instead of writing 2 for him and just letting me go, they split it up, put 1 and 1 for both of us, and held us at the precinct overnight.
And what are you doing here today?
Today I'm actually helping the Brotherhood Sister Soul by selling organic produce with their youth market.
We recognize the injustice in the application of the law and the selective enforcement, the paramilitarization of policing in communities, to the death of, you know, Eric Garner in Staten Island by a chokehold that had to deal with, you know, the perception that he was selling untaxed cigarettes, to the killings of Marley Graham and then really just having conversations about how all these things are interconnected and the ways that we view certain communities as undesirables and feel we can police them in any way.
I had an incredible relationship with the Ella Baker School. I was a founding member, and I taught specifically visual art at that school. I made it possible for students to take that avenue in the realms of the world of art. I was arrested back in 2011 in front of my building. They accused me of smoking marijuana when I was smoking a cigarette. I was removed from my classroom the following day. They put me in District 2 to work in their offices. I spent almost 2 years, a little bit over 2 years, within those offices, waiting for my case to be resolved. The judge at that period of time dismissed my case. So I thought at that period of time I was going to be returned to my classroom. But unfortunately, the DOE sent me a letter stating that I was supposed to report my arrest to them in writing. Because I did not do that, the DOE found causes for them to remove me from my classroom. One of the biggest consequences of this situation is I'm no longer in my classroom. I'm no longer with the students, providing them with that idea of what art is all about and how to apply it to the world. That has been taken away from me. I really want to go back to what I used to do with these kids, provide them with the visual art world that I used to see.
A lot of the conversations that are happening around marijuana reform in New York right now have to deal with, ending the arrest, ending the arrest in general, but then also dealing with the collateral consequences that have been happening. Over 600,000 people in the last 20 years in New York City have marijuana convictions that, for the most part, we know should not have gotten. The way that the law is being enforced is racially biased. There's no other way to describe it if 86% of the people getting arrested in New York City are young Black and Latino.
When you think about drug policy, again, it's not about drugs. It's not about drugs. It's a way to create a social control to where one group of people within the neighborhood are actively attacking another group in the neighborhood, so we can't become unified as a community to really speak about what is the impact of this is having, right? We have people who are losing their lives, to jail time, losing their lives to long prison stints, and they come back never the same, simply because somebody doesn't want to give up, their false understanding, of what policy should be around this issue.
We know that mass incarceration is decimating our community. We need to elevate our level of sophistication and nuance around the conversation around marijuana, because it's not a gateway drug, but it's definitely a gateway into mass incarceration.